You're listening to the Fantasy Football Podcast with Charles Barr and John Chapman.
Here we go with episode 27, the Malcolm Jenkins edition. That's his number. And the free agency frenzy has begun. And your boy Chuck B and your boy John Chapman. I don't know why I'm talking like that, but
it's how excited we are.
That's how excited I am. I don't know why.
Dude, it's a new league
excited.
year. It is
Woo!
officially, as of today, the 2018, there's a team there, 2018 league year has begun, and I am so ready to crown the 49ers Super Bowl champs already. That's just how I feel.
Holla at your boy. Okay, so I don't remember a more, just crazy, fast and furious 72 hours of free agency than this year. Can you remember a time?
Well, it started beforehand. So the NFL has this ridiculous tampering period where you can basically violate the rules that they have set in place to make sure the rules aren't violated. And all of the deals took place before free agency started. We knew where 5 of the top quarterbacks were going and how much for, and trades took place a month ago, even though they're not ready. I mean, there was just so much hectic craziness going on, which it reminds me a lot of the NBA season, and a lot of people have said that.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love this.
Man, and you know what thing that's kind of been a stumbling block for me is I've just had this battle with the franchise tag. Are you a fan or no?
So the franchise tag can screw you over big time, or can help you. And the precursor is this: if you are healthy and you perform well, the franchise tag can be amazing, but zero security. So if you look at Le'Veon Bell, he's making way more than he would have made if he would have signed the contract 2 years ago like he wanted to. If you look at Kirk Cousins, it allows you, look what he made back-to-back years with the Redskins, and now he's getting this huge, ridiculous contract. The final numbers still haven't come out yet, but fully guaranteed deal, first one ever. And so you're seeing good things with it, but if any of those guys got injuries, that's whenever it gets kind of bad. Even Tremaine Johnson with St. Louis and his deal that he made, it's benefited some people. However, when the next CBA comes up, they need to get rid of that.
Yep. I think the next CBA is going to be scary, but money talks. Bullshit walks. Let me bring something up. So
we have 3 years left. Sorry, I should have said that a while ago. We got 3 years left. 2021 is whenever it kind of goes out. So we got 3 years.
We're good. We'll be fine. So John and I are associated with FPC, Full Press Coverage, and they have a joint mock draft going on. And each team has a writer for each team, and we're doing a mock draft using John's big board, 101 players. And I'm super excited. And let me just say real quick, let me go through the picks so far. We're on day 3 here.
Yes.
And on day 1, FPC Browns selected Sam Darnold. Love the pick.
And if I was betting, which I will be betting this draft, that would be my number one go-to.
Yeah. Yep. I feel solid about that pick, especially with the addition of Carlos Hyde. FPC Giants on the very first day selected Josh Rosen. Day 2 was the Colts and Browns with Bradley Chubb, followed up because the Browns stayed patient and got Sam, their quarterback, there. We're able to get Saquon Barkley at 4.
Which is interesting because they signed Carlos Hyde today. But I don't think signing Carlos Hyde to $5 million deal a year will stop you from signing or drafting Saquon Barkley. But it does put a little bit of a speed bump in that, so we'll kind of see what happens.
Well, I also think, too, that, and I could be just tooting the Eagles' own horn here, but this is a copycat league. So have the Eagles done?
Yeah.
They have multiple backs, and they have a very deep defensive line. I've already started to see teams start to try to copy that. It would not surprise me at all if Saquon and Carlos Hyde were partners. On day 3, the Broncos selected Josh Allen. That actually makes all the sense in the world given John Elway and his gut feelings.
And they just signed Case Keenum And so he'll be there. He'll be the stopgap guy. And Josh Allen, if Josh Allen goes to a team without a quarterback in place, that is a wasted pick. That kid is so raw. He's a pure potential play.
Yes. And then a pick that I think is going to happen. I do think Baker Mayfield goes to the Jets at 6. I think that happens.
Is there more of a New Jersey guy not from New Jersey than Baker Mayfield?
No, there's not. I think that there's this connection from Oklahoma to New Jersey that nobody really realizes besides us because we've lived in Oklahoma.
we lived in Oklahoma on accident. Don't ever live in Oklahoma.
See, Oklahomans are not drunk, and they have this mindset, and New Jerseyans are drunk a lot, and they have the same mindset. It equals out.
I think we just lost 2 states, but I'm not even mad.
No, me neither. Sorry to you people. And I'm kidding. I'm joking around. But anyways, FPC doing massive work, providing an awesome draft experience. And so shout out to Ian, man, you're doing your thing, and shout out to all the writers. You guys are awesome. Loving all the banter in the group chat. Super sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if you want to find us on Twitter, what's going on, just type in FPC Mock Draft or hashtag FPC Mock Draft, and you can follow there. It's intense and awesome, and it really gives you a good perspective of the fan base and how they feel for your team. So.
Yeah. So to make this episode make the most sense and not to waste our listeners' time, because there's too much. Free agency has changed so drastically. Like, it honestly has gone crazy. And there's too much to really figure out how it's going to impact the draft and the fantasy. So we're really going to kind of summarize today and go to the highlights and maybe dig deep in a few areas. But let's start out with the best trade so far in free agency. John Chapman, give me your thoughts.
So if I'm looking at best trade, and this is sad because the rich get richer. Congrats to you. The Super Bowl winning Eagles have been so active on the trading wire, and they're acting like they have figured out something that other people don't understand, and they are just constantly taking advantage of other people's misfortunes. They get Michael Bennett and a 2018 7th rounder, and they gave up, this is where it gets weird, Marcus Johnson, an undrafted free agent rookie last year, and a 2018 5th round pick. Yeah, I like him too. But you're getting Michael Bennett. They have probably the best defensive line in all of football, and they just added to it. And they weren't even done. They've signed Haloti Ngata since then. Like, it doesn't make sense what's happening. I mean, you could say Michael Bennett's, he's 32 years old. He's not putting out the same production. Bull crap. He had his 3rd highest sack total last year. 8.5 sacks. The guy is playing awesome. Now, the politically driven, his compensation, all those things. But I'm telling you this right now. That defensive line is better than it was last year, and that makes zero sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's before or after the release or trade of Vinny Curry. I want to just ask you a question, though, about, let's pretend that Jonathan Chapman is a GM.
Oh,
what are your
be careful. This is like my fantasy right here.
I know. I'm sorry. So what are your thoughts, though, on sort of like Howie Roseman's approach? Because this is my theory. My theory is that he recognizes that by building an elite defensive line, you're able to not have to pay top dollar for top corners because you don't need top corners. In one of the most expensive positions to maintain, he's able to counterbalance by paying top dollar for a defensive lineman. Give me your thoughts there. You think that's accurate or no?
Well, I'll say this for Roseman. He understands his scheme, and he understands how he wants to win. And you have probably the first or second best defensive line coach in the entire NFL, and your defensive coordinator in Schwartz. Number 2, I'd probably say Jim Tomsula with the Redskins. However, you guys understand we are a gap-penetrating defensive line, and that is going to help everybody from the defensive front 4 back beyond. And the crazy thing is, the thing about Roseman is this. He understands I can find teams that are in cap trouble and take advantage of that. And here's what's funny about that. So, for example, Seattle Seahawks have $18 million in the cap available. Well, guess which team has the least amount of cap space available? The Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
Yet they're still preying on these cap-weak teams that feel like they're stuck because the Eagles can restructure and refinance and or release like they just did with Brent Selleck, which, I mean, longest tenured Eagle let go. Rest in peace there. He's amazing,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
they're not emotional. And so he's able to take advantage of teams in bad situations. Seattle Seahawks decided it's time to blow this thing up and rebuild with Russell Wilson, and they are just auctioning off all kinds of talent. News today is they're trying to trade Earl Thomas. They're offering him up in a trade, which is ridiculous. Probably one of the top 3 safeties that has ever played in the NFL, and still's got years left. But they're taking advantage of other people. And trading Torrey Smith, are you kidding me? For a young second-round cornerback in Darrell Woolley, that could have been the best trade because you're giving him a player that you were going to cut. And instead you got a young, tall, physical corner. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I love what the Eagles are doing right now. I think the rest of the NFL is kind of shaking their head every time they make a transaction, just like, gosh. And Ndamukong Suh is getting cut from Miami, and they asked him, would you go to Philadelphia? And he said, I'd play in Philly for free.
Dang.
And that's what's happening. Everybody wants to be a part of what's going on there.
That's amazing. I actually didn't know that, so I'm a little bit jacked up right now.
It's not going to happen. He's going to the Cowboys, just so you know.
Yeah, I figured that, or Seattle. So let's move on, because we could talk about the Eagles all day, and I'd be a very happy person, and our listeners would not. Let's move on to the best free agency move so far.
Best free agency, Allen Robinson to the Bears. They get him for 3 years, $42 million. You can hear in my voice as a Niners guy, I really thought the best landing spot for him and the 49ers, it would have been perfect. But he goes to the Bears, and man, I don't understand why. I'm not a Trubisky fan. But I love their new coaching staff, and I love that they're surrounding Trubisky with a lot of talent. They brought over Trey Burton, who we'll talk about in a little bit. They're signing Eric Taylor Gabriel. They are doing everything they can to help this guy. And so we'll see. Matt Nagy's their new coach, who used to be with Philly. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs last year. And so opportunities are endless. They're 100% following the plan that McVay brought out with the Los Angeles Rams, and they're just trying to reduplicate that playbook. Like you said, copycat league.
Yep. All right, so best free agency move, I definitely agree. I actually agree, too, with what I heard on NFL Network about it's an interesting choice that he went to a cold city given his injury. I think that is a poor choice for him. I think he would have been better suited in San Francisco.
It's ACL. I've been watching his workouts. He's looking pretty good. He's already doing plyometrics. He's doing cutting drills. He's doing short stuff, which is good, what you want to see with the ACL. And they got him on a discount. He's one of 3 players in NFL history to have 1,400 yards receiving in one single season before he turns 22. The only other people in the history of the NFL to do that is Randy Moss and Larry Fitzgerald. So the sky is the limit.
I'll tell you what, if he can stay healthy somewhat healthy over the next 3 years,
it's nuts.
His third contract is going to be huge.
He's going to make some money. And what's crazy is I thought Allen Robinson would sign for the most in the wide receiver class, but Sammy Watkins went for an extra $2 million per year to the Chiefs. Wild. And so you can see the discount they got because of the injury. But still, I would take Allen Robinson over Sammy Watkins, and this is not close for me.
Yep, all day. All right, so we covered best trade, best free agency acquisition. Let's go the opposite side. What was the worst trade? Who got the worst end of the deal so far?
So definitely Seattle and all their transactions. But another trade I want to talk about that I thought was almost a win-win, and that was the Bills and the Bengals trade. The Bills need a quarterback bad. They just tendered A.J. McCarron. They signed A.J. McCarron to a 2-year deal. And it's funny. Everybody was talking about how great A.J. McCarron was, and everybody else signed first. It traded for Trevor Siemian. I'm like, all right, now let's get this guy. He's the only one left. Man, that guy. And it just shows you the Bills are not high on him, but he's all that was left. So they trade their left tackle, Cordy Glenn, and the number 21 pick to jump up with the Bills To jump up in the Bengals spot, so they got the number 12 overall and a 6th-rounder. And all of this is taking place. I would be willing to bet so much money the Buffalo Bills are not picking at 12. They are following Philadelphia Eagles playbook from 2 years ago whenever they inched up by getting rid of DeMarco Murray and Kiko Alonso, and then they're going to trade up into that number 1, 2, or 3 spot. I would bet that the Bills will jump into the 3 spot with the Colts just because the Colts don't have a glaring need. So the Bills are going to be getting a quarterback. It's great for the Bengals because they got a starting left tackle and still get a first-round pick, number 21 overall. Like I thought this was a really good, smart trade. And go ahead.
I just got to correct you. You said the Colts don't have a glaring need. I think what you meant to say is the Colts are a glaring need. But anyways.
Well said. I mean, you could talk about best defensive player, which is Bradley Chubb, and pass rush, who will be there at 3. However, corner is a great need. Linebacker's a great need. Basically they have a safety.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can go any way outside of that. They got a safety. That's about all that they got.
Can I talk about the Bengals for a second? I mean, and I don't want to cut you off because I think that there's more to go there, but the Bengals kind of remind me about like just where they've been in the past few years. It's kind of like your grandpa and like the new iPhone or smartphone. He's like, no, I'm not getting into that. All I need is my brick breaker, and it's got all my numbers on here, and I know how to use it, and it's familiar to me. And Marvin Lewis, sign him for forever, and Andy Dalton.
Why the hell did they extend him?
What is going on? Okay, this has got flashes of Jeff Fisher in every place that he's ever been. I blame Jeff Fisher for so many things. But anyways, the Bengals trade back. No. The Bengals trade back, and you're just like scratching your head because you're like, okay, at that 12th spot, maybe Mason Rudolph is there, probably there. Not that you would want to draft him that high. Lamar.
Man, you could go QB, and that's not a bad idea. But here's the thing: Marvin Lewis is win now. If he doesn't get a playoff win this year, he is fired. Is drafting? So? Oh, there's no doubt. He has 0 playoff wins and was basically almost fired, almost retired, almost quit, then hired. Like, it doesn't make sense. If he doesn't get a playoff win this year, it's over. So why would you draft a QB in round 1? Because if you do that, you're just elongating the future, which the front office is not going to want. They are in a win-now mentality, I believe.
Dude, there's just, like, too many notes of, like, Stepford Wives going on in that organization where I'm pretty sure he's a robot and the owner's a robot, and I can't figure them out.
Yeah, it's not a good place.
So anyways, poor Bengals. Trade AJ Green somewhere else so we can see him more and be more productive. All right, so that was the worst trade. I agree wholeheartedly, and I think if people disagree with that, isn't there like this draft calculator that can kind of like show you how much each spot is worth? And I read somewhere like that gap between 21 and 12. I mean, that is so significant, and all they got was Cordy Glenn.
Yeah, which I like Cordy Glenn. He's a young left tackle, and you saw with the signing of Nate Soldier how important quality of left tackles, and I would say Nate Soldier is a lower tier starting left tackle. I'd rank him probably like 8 to 12. He's not even top tier. But the idea is simple, and there's different charts. There's Jimmy Johnson's classic trade chart that most people use that he made when he was with the Cowboys. Yale did another one. A bunch of kind of nerd fan geeks like me did another one. But it seems like almost the majority of NFL trades that take place follow Jimmy Johnson's unless it involves a quarterback. If you're trading up for a quarterback, that's whenever it gets crazy. And we're talking trading up for Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, going back to RG3, Carson Wentz. Like all these major trades up for quarterbacks, they overpay. But whenever a quarterback's not involved, it's usually pretty close to the Jimmy Johnson trade chart.
Yeah. It is limited amount of, even though I think that there are going to be quarterbacks aplenty, especially, let's say, top 12, there aren't a ton of teams in that mid-range that would, right? You've got the Redskins with Smith, and you've got the Dolphins with Tannehill.
Dolphins at 11.
Maybe.
Man, they just renegotiated his contract in the stupidest way ever. The Dolphins front office is stupid. because
Stupid.
they just renegotiated their contract, which gave them $6+ million this year, but they pushed the guarantee back to 2019. So it's going to be harder to get rid of Tannehill next year. So that was very nearsighted. But everything they did, why would you sign Kenny Stills and then trade Jarvis Landry? Are you freaking kidding me? Why would you sign the contract to Ndamukong Suh? He lives up to the contract and then you cut him. I know it's a different front office, but still, same things happen. Anyway, 11, Dolphins could use a quarterback. 12, Bills will get a quarterback. Redskins, I don't think will. Not in the first round.
No, yeah.
Cardinals at 15. Hell yeah, they need a quarterback. 16, Ravens. Yep, I think they need a quarterback. 17, Chargers. Yep, they could use a quarterback. I mean, there's lots of guys, and then all the way back to 21 in the Bengals. I think they need a quarterback, but won't in the first round. So there's 4 or 5 maybe teams that could surprise you if somebody falls. There's 4 stud QBs that are going early, probably in the top 12. You've got Rosen, who's my number 1, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and then Josh Allen, who's the big potential lowest floor ever, highest ceiling ever, boom bust type pick. So it's gonna be fun. I'm really excited about this draft class.
You'll never be Carson Wentz, Josh Allen. Just know that. Okay, so moving on. Worst free agency acquisition so far.
Worst, there's 2. I'm gonna have a tie. Number 1 goes to the Giants. They signed Jonathan Stewart for 2 years, $7 million. That was absolutely, what are you doing? I just don't understand
those?
They have a terrible run game, and if they get Saquon Barkley, this would be great, but I don't think they're going to. And the next one, again, with a huge need, and that's the Redskins. They lost out on all major wide receivers, so they signed Paul Richardson, 5-year deal for $40 million. I just don't. That has panic sign written all over it. They lost out on everybody. Nobody wants to play with Alex Smith. And, man, they are just piecing together the worst wide receiver core in the entire NFL. And expensive. It's not even cheap.
Right. And as you know, my feelings on him is he's Todd Pinkston 2.0.
That was a legit tweet. If you're not following at host Chuck B, you are missing out on a good laugh or two a day with sports stuff. It's pretty great. So please go follow that guy. It is great.
I do my best. I try. But you said assembling the worst wide receiver core. I mean, I think the Ravens are trying to do that too. They're shelling some money away for some wide receiver 3, right?
It doesn't make sense, man.
Yeah.
So they sign guys from the worst wide receiver in core and pay them, wide receiver 2 money. They get John Brown and they get Ryan Grant. To go. Yep, solved all your problems. It's going to be great. Brashad Perriman. Yeah.
And so doesn't what does John what does he have? He has not diabetes. What does he have?
Who are you talking about? Sickle cell?
Sickle cell. Yeah, John Brown's got sickle cell.
Oh,
he's got one of those.
I can't wait to read the comments on this episode. Yeah, sickle cell. Which I love John Brown. And I think he's a good receiver, but nah, he's just not polished, and he's got lots of health issues. It's not going to be good.
Sorry, man. I thought it was diabetes.
That's okay. And the Ravens pick at 16, and that's like one of those spots that seems like it's going to be the first wide receiver off the board. We'll see what happens. We'll see. That's a terrible team.
They're going backwards.
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Under the radar NFL signing. We're not talking about fantasy value at this point, because we're going to get to that in a second. But what about just for the NFL, signing that nobody's really paying attention to?
Man, I love the New Orleans new and improved defense. And their secondary is going to be off of the freaking charts. And they picked up Patrick Robinson, who played there in his rookie deal, on a 4-year, $20 million deal. Now, Patrick Robinson's not going to play the entire contract out. He's too old. But Patrick Robinson is a hell of a slot corner, and he can play outside, so he's very versatile. He's 30 years old now, but man, I'm telling you right now, that defense is going to be really legit. Really excited to see what they're going to I don't like saying early Super Bowl favorites or anything like that, but if you're talking about returning the most talent, and then you're talking about improving on that talent with stud quarterback and solid defensive play, they've got to be at the top of the list, which that seems to be the formula. Strong defense with a stud quarterback, and I don't know.
They added a underrated guy to Demario Davis at linebacker. I mean, that guy's legit. So
yeah, he's not bad. They paid him 3 year, $24 million. So you're talking eight a year. He's a off the ball linebacker that can rush and cover, kind of a jack of all trades guy. Solid, man, just absolutely solid defense that improved this offseason instead of gotten worse. And if you remember, I mean, they had the offensive rookie of the year in the draft, and they had the defensive rookie of the year in the draft, and that didn't count Ramczyk, their offensive tackle that was a beast.
Yeah,
I mean, They killed the draft. So we'll see what happens.
So before we get into talking about fantasy a little bit, because that's definitely what this should all be about for us, right? But is just about teams that have taken a step forward. And I got to say, the Saints, but, man, I hate to say it, and they're in your division, but the Rams, man. I mean, that secondary, and they got another great slot corner. They re-signed him in Roby Coleman. Gosh, I mean, that's going to be a tough group. Now, I will say that Talib is how old?
Talib? Let me
32, 33. He's somewhere right in there.
Oh, big time, yeah.
So we don't know if he's going to have to take a step backwards. That will be a question, right? But Marcus Peters, we'll see how that locker room is. We'll see if he's going to be screaming and yelling at his coach. But from a pure talent standpoint, boy, did they improve.
Yeah, I mean, so Aqib Talib, he just turned 32 last month. And you're adding guys that are locker room, quote-unquote, issues, but play with moxie. And there's certain positions that you want that, like, hardcore Deion Sanders attitude. Sorry, I'll say it, just piece of shit attitude. And Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, they check that category to a T. Now, Aqib Talib has never relied on speed. He's a bigger guy that plays very, very, very physical. 6'2", just over 200 pounds. Like, he's never been fast. He's been all right, but he's not relying on speed. Very similar to Richard Sherman. Yeah. That secondary is legit. And they did lose Sammy Watkins. The coach McVay came out today and said, we're not going to replace Sammy with a guy. We're going to personnel it to where we have 2 young guys that are going to come out and kind of fulfill that role. And Josh Reynolds out of Texas A&M. And then also Michael Thomas, not the Michael Thomas with the Saints, but Michael Thomas that was drafted out of Southern Mississippi. And we're going to kind of use those 2 guys to fulfill that role. But the offense, that is an offensive system that is not predicated necessarily on talent at the wide receiver position because they scheme guys open instead of getting guys open based off of talent. So, yeah, I think that they'll take a little bit of a step back on offense, but they're making up for that on defense.
Yep. It's going to be fun to watch because you know that they're going to get pressure up the middle, and I think that those corners are going to benefit. But for how long? I mean, what kind of team, what kind of culture are you going to build? And I think that matters.
I think Aaron Donald is going to have to be a coach. Wade Phillips has always been a player's coach that lets people do whatever the hell they want on that defense. And so you've got a coach that's going to be hands-off with Marcus Peters. We've seen who that guy is. He got kicked out of his college team. They traded in the NFL. They traded him away for basically nothing. He's a problem. He walks himself to the locker room even though he doesn't get kicked off. The best play I've ever seen is whenever he intercepted the pass, which he thought the game was over. It wasn't, and then punts the ball into the stands, which was so great and got a penalty. They ended up winning the game still, but it was like if he just caught the ball and nailed it and it was over, like the game was over. But he's so great, man. He's very entertaining.
I think it probably pisses off Rams fans to hear it, and I get it. But when you do bring in guys that are low-character guys, or at least have been that historically, the hope is that they'll mature. So we'll leave it at that. For you Rams fans out there, let's hope that Peters matures and doesn't scream at his
It's not happening, bro.
Well, hey, I mean, I still think that team they have a window open.
They do. That's very true.
So let's move on. Let's hit fantasy, man, because
all right.
Some of these moves that have happened, and I'll start it off with one that I think, okay? I think that one of the biggest fantasy moves that happened was Jimmy Graham. I think that the guy was putting up those kinds of numbers with Russell Wilson in an offense that, yeah, they were run heavy for a while. They definitely became more pass heavy, but still. Now you're talking about Aaron frickin' Rodgers, a guy who's going to put the ball on you exactly when he's supposed to, going to put you in good positions. I think Jimmy Graham is going to get split out. I think with Adams, Cobb, and Nelson's replacement, man, I love his fantasy value. He's popped back up to easily a top 5 tight end if he wasn't already that in Seattle.
Yeah, he was borderline that already. I mean, he had almost 100 targets the last 2 years. He put up 10 touchdowns last year. That's going to go up. You have the best quarterback maybe in the history of the NFL as far as goal line passing goes. And Jordy's gone, his favorite target. And so those are going somewhere. One, this is a huge stock up for Devontae Adams. Oh, my gosh. Right. He is a top 4 overall wide receiver in Dynasty. Redraft doesn't matter. Like, get that kid. You do whatever you got to do to get that kid. But this helps a lot of everybody out on the team as far as Aaron Rodgers' numbers are going to go up, touchdown percentage-wise. Now, you got to understand, Jimmy Graham is 31, but his speed is not what makes him great. It is his catch radius, his height, his jumping skills, his hands, the way that he catches extended away from his body, jump ball, so on and so forth. So, yeah, great. Very well said there. Another guy I want to talk about is let's stay with tight end. That's Trey Burton with Chicago.
Woo! Yes.
You've been hyping this guy up for 4 years straight. He signs a 4-year, $32 million deal in Chicago. And if you want to know how much they like this guy, Adam Shaheen was a second-round pick. So, like, this is a big deal. Like, they love this guy. And I think that he is going to provide something different because Trey Burton is much more of a fast kind of Adam Shaheen is huge, 6'6", 270. Yeah, that's not Trey Burton. Burton that is correct. He's going to split out, and he's probably going to be their second or third wide receiver option. He's 6'3", a lot shorter, big goofy smile. I'm looking at his stuff right now. He seems like he's having a good time. So this is huge. If you're in fantasy, man, Trey Burton is a buy low. Dynasty, you can get him for free right now on your waiver wire unless it's locked. You'll be able to get this guy for super, super cheap, and it's going to pay off, I promise you.
Yeah. No, I mean, here's the thing. I've watched him, obviously for years, and he needed that time to develop. That's something that, people need to know is that he wouldn't have come in and put up the numbers and done, even in the first few years. But the player who he's developed into now, I firmly believe that playoffs and obviously Super Bowl, that changes players. I think it changes their confidence. I think it changes the way that how the game slows down for them. Trey Burton coming onto the Bears is bringing leadership. He's bringing a winning attitude, and his route running, his ball skill. Now he's a bit shorter. I think he's 6'4". I think
6'3".
6'3". So he's a bit shorter, but he's athletic, so he can get up. But he does kind of look more like that H-back, and they will use him back there. They'll get it, the Eagles did. They would put him back there kind of like in that, almost like he's going to block or going to do something. He'll split out and run some wheel route and burn the tight end, the linebacker. This guy is going to make a difference for Trubisky. Love it. 2 tight end set, they're going to go with it with Jordan Howard.
I wish I liked Trubisky, man. My film of him, I wasn't a fan. Last year, John Fox, I feel like it would have been better if he just didn't play at all. Man, we'll see. Who knows? Yeah. Maybe it's what happened with Jared Goff, and we can hope for that.
Right, we can hope for that. So, talk to me about Sammy Watkins' fantasy value. Where do you kind of have him? Did he go up or down?
He's going to stay the same.
Okay.
But this is the thing that I kind of like. Sammy Watkins will never be kind of that like huge tier 1, possible top 5, whatever. It's just not going to happen. He had the 1 year where he was almost exceptional. I mean, his best year, he barely passed 1,000 yards receiving, but he had 9 touchdowns. Here's what's amazing about what's going to happen for the Chiefs. You have a quarterback that has one of the biggest arms in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. We don't know how good he is, but his arm is nuts. You have Sammy Watkins, one of the best deep ball wide receivers in the NFL, on one side. Then you have Tyreek Hill on the other side, probably one of the fastest deep ball players on the other side. This is gigantic for Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt will not see a loaded box for the rest of his career as long as those two receivers are there.
That's awesome.
And they did this on purpose. They draft a big arm guy. They draft big time receivers that can go deep on the ball. And now you got this guy that can breaks more tackles than anybody in the NFL, Kareem Hunt. If only Andy Reid will understand you need to run the football whenever you're up 21 points. I mean,
Ouch.
so I'm not really big on Sammy Watkins. I think that this hurts the fantasy value of Tyreek Hill as well. But this is all signs pointing up for Kareem Hunt. If it could go higher. I mean, I'm super high on this kid.
Man, that's awesome. The one guy who it's like, see you later, was Dante Moncrief. And I mean, in terms of like, you remember how high people were drafting him a year or two ago?
Yeah, it was stupid. It was all Andrew Luck dependent, and you just traded in Andrew Luck for who? Blake Bortles. He won 2 playoff games without throwing over 80 yards. I'm sorry, over 90 yards. He threw 80 yards in both those. Like, it's just almost non-existence. But the Jaguar signing of Norwell was absolutely amazing. Like, I think that the running game is going to get even better. So Andrew Norwell comes over, 5 years, $66 million. This is Leonard Fournette plus. They're just going with as many kind of second-tier wide receivers as possible. Dante Moncrief, they re-signed Marquise Lee. They re-signed Marquise Lee for 4 years, $38 million. Like, you could have kept... You could have kept Allen Robinson for 4 more million. Like, come on. It's not rocket science here.
Nah, sums up, though. Sums up with that.
He didn't want to play with Blake Bortles anymore.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. So, I got a fantasy theory for you here. So, I think whenever you see the Cleveland Browns, you just automatically have this, like, kind of yuck feeling in terms of, I mean, obviously Duke Johnson, he shined through that. We've been able to take a chance on Tyrod Taylor as a backup quarterback to your fantasy team. What do you think about his production next year? Do you think that he's someone you can rely on?
I think
all those tools.
So here's the problem. One of the worst coached teams in the NFL. Hugh Jackson is a great coordinator. He's a terrible head coach. Almost ruined Deshaun Kaiser's career before he turned 21. Game management, probably the worst game situational play caller ever. You have Isaiah Crowell goes off for a 47-yard touchdown to start the third quarter, and he doesn't touch the ball again the rest of the game in a close game that they lost by 3. These are just off the top of my head. Like, he is terrible. He's a great coordinator and good with quarterback development on the most part. Having said all those things, Tyrod Taylor is an instant fantasy player. If you look at what Deshaun Kaiser was able to do, he had 5 top 5 fantasy performances. He just had some terrible ones as well. Tyrod Taylor doesn't turn the ball over, but the problem is the Browns are not going to win a lot of games, which we're used to. And once they do that, Hugh Jackson is going to be forced to play whichever quarterback that they draft first overall just to try to save his career.
Yep.
And once they do that, Tyrod Taylor will have 0 value again. So he's not a guy I will draft super high, but he's a great fallback plan. If I'm drafting Andrew Luck, this is really, really early in the 4th or 5th round, which I probably wouldn't do that. I'm scared how he's going to perform in week 1. I'm going to save my last pick for a guy like Tyrod Taylor.
What about Jarvis Landry? Is he stocked down a little bit?
Him and Johnson are going to be playing the same role, Duke Johnson. I just, man, I really wish Hugh Jackson wasn't the coach there. And I would be very, very excited. There's no doubt that Jarvis Landry will be on the field for predominantly all of the snaps. But there's a lot of guys there. So he's going to be the wide receiver 1, and you're going to have Josh Gordon out wide. Every single play, those 2 people will be on the field for the most part, and you rotate everybody else in. So I just don't, man. Think about Zay Jones last year and all the targets he had. That's going to be Jarvis Landry receiving those passes from Tyrod Taylor. So you're very similar body style to Jarvis Landry and Zay Jones, but now you've got a guy that catches as well as anybody. So I don't know if it's stocked down. They'll be behind in a lot of games, so they'll be forced to throw the ball. I think he's about where he's been. I think he's about where he's been. You're looking at a guy that's going to have 100 catches, right at 1,000 yards, maybe 5 to 7 touchdowns. That's who he's been his whole career with 5 different QBs at Miami. I don't think it's going to change with Tyrod and the Browns.
From an NFL production standpoint and a fantasy production standpoint, does Kirk Cousins bring a whole lot more than what Case Keenum gave him last year?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Really?
And here's where the difference is. It is more first downs. It is more manageable drives. It is more check downs giving players the chance to be successful. Dalvin Cook, huge upgrade. Look how much Kirk Cousins loves to hit the outlet. What Kirk Cousins does, he doesn't have a strong arm. But what he does better than anybody is he progresses through his reads quick. So if Diggs is covered, he looks at Thielen, he's covered, Rudolph's covered, check down. Like, he does not hesitate in his play calls, which is exact opposite of Keenum. Keenum will lock onto a target for a long time and then scramble and make some kind of crazy pass to his first or second read. So what it's going to be is less highlights, like big, oh my gosh, I can't believe this play, and a lot more, man, that was a great 3rd down and 5 conversion. And so I think less highlights, much more sustainability.
Well, and two, if they go ahead in that pick 30 and they take kind of like whoever's the best running back and kind of fits their style, there's going to be some talent there. I mean, you're looking at potentially Ronald Jones is there. Nick Chubb will probably be there.
They've got to get somebody besides just Dalvin Cook, but you can pick up somebody like a Mark Walton in the 4th round. There's going to be a lot of guys there, like you said, that you can patch in there.
That's what I'm saying, to take somebody at 30, because you know me, I'm a Florida State guy. Love Dalvin, but after that injury, don't you kind of got to get somebody else after McKinnon's left? Yeah,
you have to. And that they're trying to get Latavius Murray to take a pay cut right now, and if not, they're going to cut him. But I think they're going to have to cut him just because you don't need another first, second down back. You need a 3rd down back. So I don't think Latavius will be there very long.
I mean, if Sony Michel's there, how do you not? I mean,
it's going to be 2nd round. So you're talking late 1st, early 2nd for a guy that's going to be backing up where you're at now. So if he's there at the back of the 2nd round, pick 62, I don't think he will be.
He won't be, no. Yeah, I could see him going really early.
I got a 1st round grade on him. He's my number 2 overall running back behind Saquon. I have him ahead of Geis just because of his versatility. So I think he's going 1st round personally.
Could go to the Lions maybe.
Perfect fit.
Yeah. So, man, do you have any other fantasy kind of news for us or any kind of takes?
Man, I'll say this. I absolutely love what's happening in the NFL, and we've talked about that. And I will say huge stock down to a guy I was betting big time, and that's Derrick Henry. I really thought he was going to be the bell cow kind of guy.
Yeah.
And they went and paid 4 years, $20 million to Dion Lewis. And, man, I think Derrick Henry's value is going to be better than it was last year. I think he'll go out there 1st down for sure. But it's going to be kind of those, let's send him out there, run the ball with Derrick Henry, and Dion Lewis goes in on 2nd and 3rd down type of a guy. So, man, I was pretty bummed about this. I got him in a couple dynasty leagues, and I think, he's going to be a high-end RB2, but that's going to be about all that he is. Yeah. But other than that, man, we'll see what happens. Jerick McKinnon signed a huge deal for the 49ers. It's basically a 1-year deal, but Jerick McKinnon's going to get 60 to 70-plus catches in that offense. Absolutely love buying him low. A lot of people. He's not going to get a lot of rushing yards, but he's going to have a lot of catches. You're talking leading the NFL in catches outside of Johnson and Bell, probably.
Yeah. Man, it kind of just feels like the tectonic plates have shifted and the NFL has really changed finally. And I think this free agency has been a marker of that. So this is cool. I can't wait till the draft's over so me and you can sit down and go through the lists and re-rank all these guys in terms of fantasy production because it has changed.
I love it, man. And I'll say this. Like, the thing that the NFL did to do this is when they slotted the draft pick compensation. Now more teams want to trade, and it's way more fun. But before you couldn't do it because Sam Bradford making, $70+ million for being the first pick. And the next year, you got Cam Newton making $22 million for the same pick. So now teams can financially be able to afford trading up, and it is fun as hell. The repercussions have just been nuts.
It's been amazing, Carson Wentz.
Love it.
All right, man. Well, this has been episode 27 for Fantasy Football, ? On iTunes. To be honest with you, if you're going to search us in iTunes, you got to search Fantasy Football ? John. But you know what? One day it won't be like that.
Leave us a review. If you're one of our followers, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. But leave us a review on iTunes. We're jumping up there, but we just have fun, and that's why we do this. So thanks for listening, and we will be back with you guys in a week or two for sure.
Peace.